Last week, Canadians were shocked and horrified to find out of a terrorist plot planned by a father and son who appear to have links to ISIS. Evidence exists that the father was involved in a horrific torture attack in an ISIS video. Shortly after the events in the video, this individual was admitted into Canada and later was granted citizenship by the Trudeau government. This is a colossal failure of Trudeau's national security system. Canadians have a right to know what went wrong. How did this individual gain entry into Canada and obtain Canadian citizenship? Canadians also have a right to know if there are anybody else, if there's anyone else in Canada with similar backgrounds who are granted entry into our country. My colleague, Frank Caputo, the acting public safety critic for the Conservative Party, has written a letter to Dominic LeBlanc, Minister of Public Safety, demanding that the details surrounding this foiled terrorist plot be made public so that Canadians can get answers. So today, Conservatives are calling on the Bloq and NDP to support our efforts to recall the Public Safety Committee so that we can investigate all the aspects of this disturbing and shocking event. To date, Minister LeBlanc has not made these details public. That's why the committee meeting and the committee investigation is so critical. Now, unfortunately, over the last few weeks, Conservatives have made a number of requests to recall committees to investigate important issues that are facing Canadians, like the dramatic rise in violent crime, or the diversion of Justin Trudeau's taxpayer-funded narcotics into our streets, or the anti-Israel and justification of terrorism remarks by the Liberal-appointed Human Rights Commissioner. And unfortunately, the Bloq and NDP have refused to support our recall of these committees and instead have chosen to stay on their summer vacations. This incident, though, demands that the committee be recalled. This is serious. Lives are on the line. We potentially would have seen the loss of innocent life had the RCMP not caught these suspects before they were able to perpetrate their horrific crimes. So we're calling on the Bloq and NDP to come back to Ottawa to recall the committee so that Canadians can get answers on this most important and pressing matter. Lives are at stake when national security systems don't do their job. Lives are at stake when people with connections to terrorist organizations are allowed into Canada and granted citizenship.
This incident is an active criminal investigation. What makes you think that the RCMP, CBSA would be able to say anything, let alone the minister, who is separate from the RCMP?
Well, what we're calling for are the details about how these individuals were allowed into Canada. That's totally appropriate for Justin Trudeau's officials to answer for.
The government always cites privacy when it comes to immigration matters, regardless of when someone's charged with a crime, though.
This government, when it suits them, has made public comments on any number of investigations. It's totally within their purview to inform Canadians how people associated with ISIS who participated in a gruesome and horrific torture video were allowed into Canada, whether or not there are other individuals who may have links to terrorist organizations are currently at large in Canada. I mean, this is a shocking and disturbing event. At a time when anti-Semitic hate incidences are on the rise, when Jewish communities are facing attacks in cities across the country, for Canadians to find out that their own government let in someone associated with ISIS and granted them citizenship, it's entirely appropriate for the government to answer for that.
Have you had any conversations ahead of this press conference with the Bloq or the NDP about their potential support for this proposal?
Well, as I mentioned, my colleague Frank Caputo has written to the minister to make these details public. We are calling on the Bloq and NDP publicly today because of the track record over the last few weeks. When we submit proposals to them to recall committees to investigate very important issues like the rise in violent crime, like the diversion of Trudeau's taxpayer-funded narcotics into our communities, or the appointment of someone with a long history of anti-Israel and justification of terrorist comments to the Human Rights Commission. They have refused. So we are taking this issue very seriously, and we want to publicly call on them to support our efforts to recall committees so that they don't just slough it off till the fall.
Mr. Scheer,
have you seen that video? Have you seen the connections yourself? Have you seen this
I've seen the public reports in the Canadian media about these horrific incidences.
Who should testify? Who should come and testify from that committee? Who would like to hear?
Well, we'd start with the minister. We'd start with Minister LeBlanc, and then any officials that oversee these types of applications and these types of security screenings. I mean, this is one of the most basic responsibilities of government, to keep Canadians safe. And for Canadians to have confidence in our immigration system, we need to know that in every case, in every application, the due diligence and proper screening is done. Clearly, that was not done in this situation, and lives were almost lost.